So welcome everyone to our webinar, 5-Day Delivery, What Will the Impacts Be, with Bob Shimmick. Let's start off with some housekeeping. If you have any questions during the session, please use the question box on the right-hand corner of your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. If we don't get around to answering your questions, we'll make sure to connect with you offline and get you the answers that you need. All right, so my name is Teresa Chang. I'm the Marketing Promotions Coordinator here at Satori Software, as well as today's moderator. Joining us today is Bob Shimmick. He's our Senior Director of Postal Affairs. Bob comes to us with about 24 years of postal experience and is a highly respected leader in the mailing industry. He is a board member and an active participant in many postal industry associations, including MTAC, Postcom, ID Alliance, AMEE, and AMSP. For this session, he will be talking about what's really going on with the proposed 5-day delivery schedule and provide you with the insider view on what this would mean for mailers going forward. So without further ado, here's Bob Shimmick.
All right, thank you. Well, the timing of this web event is very interesting from the standpoint that as of about an hour ago, for those of you that are plugged into industry communications, the Postal Service made a new announcement that really, for the most part, completely changes this presentation. So we will still be going through the slides, but I'm going to kind of start out at the end with the announcement that was just made, and then we're going to kind of go back and still walk through the slides that were put together today, because there are still some very relevant parts that we can spend some time talking about. So here, as you can see, this is our agenda for today, and the main topics that I was going to walk through. Moving on to what has been announced, I will walk you through all the way up to what happened now an hour ago. So on January 14th, the Board of Governors requested that the Postal Service accelerate their cost-cutting activities to try and get Postal Service finances in order, or in better order. And so one of the things, so that triggered a number of different things that started happening. One of the items was the announcement that occurred on February 6th, where the Postal Service came out with this announcement that they were looking at going to 5-day delivery for essentially letters and flats, and still continue with 6-day delivery for parcels. That was just one piece of an overall puzzle that the Postal Service is working on. Some of the other things that are not part of this web event are activities that the Postal Service is undertaking are more accelerated facility closures, and there are other activities like that that are also taking place. So the Postal Service proposed that they would go to this new 5-day delivery schedule starting the week of August 5th. And as I noted here, the Postal Service is still looking to deliver packages 6 days a week, but all other mail essentially would drop down to just Monday through Friday deliveries. A couple of details here were that P.O. boxes would continue to be delivered on Saturdays, and for post offices that are currently open on Saturdays, they would continue to be open on Saturdays for mail to be dropped off. Now, the most recent announcement that just occurred about an hour ago was that yesterday, apparently, the Board of Governors met to talk about the continuing resolution that was passed by Congress, which essentially blocks the Postal Service from moving to 5-day delivery. And so there'll be more discussion about that later in this presentation. But with this announcement, the Board of Governors is directing the Postal Service to essentially stand down from moving to 5-day delivery, and that they have to wait for Congress to enact postal reform and give the Postal Service the flexibility to go to 5-day delivery. So as of right now, the Postal Service will not be going to 5-day delivery on August 5th as it originally proposed. With that said, the Postal Service is still very much interested in being able to go to 5-day delivery. And so this is something that's not going away. It's just waiting for Congress to get out of the way to be able to move forward with this. One of the other things that was rather interesting about the announcement, and starts to go off the topic of 5-day, but the Board of Governors is asking the Postal Service to look into reopening negotiations with unions to be able to look at ways to cut their labor costs. So that's a rather interesting development that will probably trigger a lot of discussion as well. And the other thing is they are asking the Postal Service to also consider an exigent rate increase to help raise revenue and to help address the issue of products that are underwater. So this might be a little bit of bittersweet for those of you that, were supportive of the Postal Service continuing to deliver 6 days a week. Obviously, there's a burden and a cost associated with that, and it's looking like with Congress blocking their ability to go to 5-day, it might now have accidentally put on the table, or not accidentally, but it looks like it's putting back on the table consideration of an exigent rate case. So that could be interesting to see what ends up happening with that. So now, with all that in mind, I'm going to kind of go back through now and walk through the slides, and we'll kind of talk about items that are relevant to 5-day, because it's something that's not going to go away. So the first thing we're going to do is just talk a little bit about what were the reactions from the various areas to the announcement that the Postal Service came out with. And this is the reactions when they initially came out with the announcement of proposing to go to 5-day in February, when they initially announced it back in February. So from a customer point of view, there's been a number of polls that have been taken by news organizations that essentially show that the consumers are supportive of the Postal Service's move to 5-day. I think one of the more recent ones that was referenced was that a CBS News poll that noted that 71% of customers favor ending Saturday delivery. Well, the thing to keep in mind here, though, too, is a lot of it is based on how the question is poised. And a lot of the times for these polls, the question is poised in the way of, would you rather the Postal Service move to 5-day delivery, or would you rather that the government comes in and bails out the Postal Service? Well, you know, it's kind of like, well, if you cut off your finger, you have a choice of either cutting off your finger or cutting off your hand. Which one do you want? Well, most people are going to say, I'll cut off my finger. So, so to me, that's not overly surprising. So what was the reaction from Congress? Well, for Congress, it was interesting in very shortly after the Postal Service came out with this announcement to move to 5-day in February, a couple of the key people that are driving attempting to drive postal reforms through Congress came out and very quickly supported the Postal Service with this announcement. In particular, Issa and Colburn were both came out with a joint announcement that was supportive of the Postal Service doing this. With that said, while some of the leadership that is helping to drive postal reform was supportive of this, Congress as a whole is not, and as anything else, Congress is very much divided, and everyone has their own opinions about what should happen with 5-day and if it should go away. There are a number of people in Congress that represent rural America that are very much opposed to the Postal Service going to 5-day delivery. And so one of the things that ended up happening was this continuing resolution that was passed by Congress that holds the Postal Service accountable to continue to deliver 6 days a week. And so, you know, while some of the leadership in Congress related to postal reform is supportive of it, Congress as a whole is not. Postal unions, for the most part, were opposed to the plans. Obviously, with postal unions, they're concerned about membership, and you know, as the Postal Service reduces delivery, it allows it to reduce its labor costs. There would be fewer postal employees, and obviously that means less membership for the unions. And so in general, postal unions were opposed to it. Now I've heard, here and there scattered spots where, some of the unions may not be completely opposed to it, but for the most part, the feel from the unions is that they would be opposed to going to 5-day delivery. Now, the last one, mail owners and mail service providers, this is the one that I find the most interesting from the standpoint that they're the ones that pay the postage, and it seems like no one seems to really be paying attention to what their opinions are. And so this is something that I think now that 5-day is temporarily off the table, there needs to be more discussion in the industry about, for those that pay the postage and actually provide the funding for the Postal Service to operate their business, what is the opinion there as far as moving from 6-day delivery to 5-day? And I think one of the things that I've seen in the industry is some are for it, some are against, and there isn't really going to be a unified statement from the industry, because it really depends on how people are using the mail. It's going to impact everyone differently. So now here's where things kind of changed, but we'll still kind of walk through the story of what ended up happening here. And this is politics. Wait till tomorrow and it will change. Well, tomorrow apparently is today, so everything just changed. Congress. So when the Postal Service came out with their announcement to say that they were going to move to 5-day delivery on August 5th, there was, as noted, there was some in Congress that were opposed to it. So what ended up happening was, when the Postal Service came out with the announcement in February, the current budget, we were nearing the end of the budget, and there was all the discussions about the fiscal cliff and what was going to happen. Well, one of the things that was that the Postal Service saw this as an opportunity to say, hey, there was going to need to be either some sort of new bill passed or some sort of continuing resolution that would have to be passed in March to basically keep the government going. And so the Postal Service saw this as an opportunity they asked Congress to remove the rider that basically requires them to deliver mail 6 days a week. It also has a statement in there about continuing to deliver at levels equivalent to 1983. And so the Postal Service asked Congress to remove that rider in any type of continuing resolution, because then that would give them the opportunity to move forward with the 5-day delivery starting in August. Well, when the Postal Service finally got around to passing that continuing resolution, they kept the rider in there. And so that continuing resolution covers from now through September 30th, basically the end of the fiscal year for the government, which ends on September 30th, or October 1st is the start of the new fiscal year for Congress and for the budget. And so the continuing resolution goes through September 30th, and the rider is still in there, mandating the Postal Service continue to deliver 6 days a week. So after that happened, what's been going on in the past couple of weeks was looking at, was there some legal loopholes that could be exercised that would allow the Postal Service to still move to the 5-day delivery in August. And so one of the things that happened was Congress had asked the GAO for a legal opinion of whether or not there was a loophole there where the Postal Service could move to 5-day delivery. And the loophole was, if you look at the continuing resolution, in the fiscal year 2012, the Postal Service did not receive any funds from the government. And so as a part of the continuing resolution, they are also receiving no additional funds from the government. So based on that, there was a question of, if the continuing resolution was only applied to the funds that were being allocated, and there were no funds allocated, does this continuing resolution really even apply to the Postal Service? And basically, the legal opinion from the GAO was, does the statutory requirement still remain in place? And the answer, based on that opinion, pretty much comes back yes. Then that kind of opened up another question of, well, does a modified 6-day delivery violate, the requirement? And that was not really spoken to in the opinion, but one of the things that the Postal Service is saying is, well, we're still delivering 6 days a week, but there's one of those days that 6th day is the only thing we're delivering is packages. And so does that still meet the law? And so this would be, my opinion in that case was based on the fact that in the continuing resolution it says that the Postal Service has to continue its level of service equivalent to what it was doing in 1983. It would not. And so, but they were still looking at ways to do that. As of this morning, until this announcement came out, the Postal Service had remained committed to the fact that they were going to be moving forward with the modified 6-day delivery, which now, as we know from the announcement, is no longer the case. So they are going to be backing down, and they're going to be waiting for Congress to pass some sort of postal reform. It is their hope, the Postal Service hope, that as a part of that postal reform that ends up occurring, there will be flexibility given to the Postal Service to actually move forward with 5-day delivery as they have originally proposed. So one of the things that we still need to spend some time looking at, and I think both Congress is interested in this, the industry is interested in this, and I believe also the PRC is even interested in this, and that is the Postal Service has been consistently stating all along that they are going to be, going to the modified 6-day delivery will allow them to save $2 billion a year. And there are a number of areas that have called that $2 billion into question. Congress would like to see more detail around where the cost savings are really going to come from. If we actually take a step back, 5-day delivery is not a new topic. This is something that we've been talking about for years and years now. And one of the things that happened about 2 years ago was that the PRC evaluated the Postal Service's proposal to move to a 5-day delivery. Now, that evaluation was basically completely shutting down Saturday delivery. So it wasn't this modified 6-day delivery. It was truly just saying Saturday goes away across the board. And one of the things that was noted was the PRC called into question whether or not the Postal Service had adequately accounted for the volume loss that would just kind of go, that would essentially automatically go away as a result of reducing its service. There's a feeling that there is just a certain amount of volume that is just naturally going to disappear because the industry is going to see that the Postal Service walking away from Saturday delivery is not going to allow them to meet their needs, and they're going to have to find some other method that does meet their business needs. The other question that the Postal Service, or the PRC, called into question was, with taking one more day out of delivery, does the Postal Service really have the ability to handle the mail volume and the spikes that are going to occur with essentially being shut down for 2 days in a row? There's going to be, are they going to be able to handle the Monday volume? And I know there's also been discussions about, are they going to be able to handle situations when there's a Monday holiday? So essentially now you have a 3-day spike of mail volume trying to go through the system starting on Tuesday, and how well will that work? And so from my perspective and what I've heard in discussions with the industry is the answer to that question depends on what you're looking at. I would say when you're looking at letters, the Postal Service does have the machines, the equipment, and the capacity to be able to adequately handle those types of spikes. If you look at flat volume, I would say that's a slightly different situation. I know one of the things that Jim Cochran has even shared with the industry is, as they're looking at all the scan data and all the information that's coming with the new tools that they have in place to watch the full service mail volume coming through, they're seeing these huge spikes of drop ship appointments coming in for flat mail on Fridays, which ends up then hitting them as far as not meeting service delivery performance standards on Saturday and Monday. And so they are already seeing the fact that, you know, these Friday spikes are making it difficult for them to meet their standards for the delivery service performance for flats. And so obviously if those spikes got even larger, my impression would be that would just make it that much more difficult for the Postal Service to actually accomplish it. And so we'll have to see, you know, I think now that, you know, the Postal Service is stepping down, there might be more time now to take a closer look at this and for the Postal Service to better justify whether or not it's going to see this $2 billion in savings. Now, you know, one of the things to also talk about here was when you look at how the Postal Service was proposing to do the Saturday delivery of packages as a part of the modified plan, one of the things that happened, if you go back, I think it was around the beginning of this year, end of last year, there was a new contract put in place where there was a new category of Postal Service employee that was established, which was referred to as a city carrier assistant. And so this was a new position for some of the unions. This position was going to come in at a lower cost than existing Postal Service and union employees, and the Postal Service was looking to use these new city carrier assistants combined with dynamic carrier routing capabilities to be able to do the Saturday delivery of packages at a low cost to be able to generate these savings. So is that $2 billion the right number? I think there's going to be some additional discussion and debate, but I think there's definitely, based on the way the Postal Service was planning to move forward with it, there was definitely going to be savings. The question is just how much. So just some additional thoughts. The proposed changes to delivery itself has not solved the Postal Service's problems. I talked about this a little bit at the beginning. You know, when we go back to January and the Board of Governors told the Postal Service to be more aggressive about cost-cutting methods, you know, the move from 5-day to the move to 5-day delivery was just one of several steps that they're taking. I know if you look at facility closures, there are, I believe, 50 or more facility closures that are also being accelerated to help reduce the Postal Service's costs. And so this is just one piece of the puzzle. And so even though it's being put on the shelf for now or being temporarily delayed, I really do not think it's a topic that's going to be going away. We talked about, you know, one of the things the Postal Service talked about, and they actually talked about it a lot at the National Postal Forum as well, was, you know, they came out with the announcement well in advance, 6 months in advance of when they were planning to implement. The goal was to allow the industry and the Postal Service as well to get everything ready to go and allow everyone to plan and prepare so this move to a modified 6-day delivery could go as smoothly as possible. And, you know, well, prior to this morning, really what we had instead was just a lot of confusion because the political winds were constantly changing, you know, between, you know, the Postal Service making the announcement, the continuing resolutions that made it look like it wasn't going to happen, and then the Postal Service looking for ways and loopholes to get around, you know, the continuing resolution just, you know, made everyone wonder what exactly was going to happen. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, we all know is, you know, beginning of August, as we roll through the end of the year, is a very heavy mail volume season, and so it was critical that this get clarified because, you know, production schedules need to get nailed down. You know, if mailers or mail owners were going to be looking at changing when they would want to drop their mail based on, you know, a modified 6-day delivery plan, you know, what kind of impact would that have for printers, mail service providers? It was really raising a lot of questions and making it very difficult for for the industry to really lock in, the fall mailing plans and how things were going to happen. So now that the Postal Service has now stepped down from that, I think it's probably going to be safe to say that 6-day delivery will continue through the remainder of this year. But again, the thing to keep in mind is the continuing resolution only goes through September 30th. At that point in time, one would hope some level of postal reform would be passed, and then that could open up the opportunity for the Postal Service to again look at moving to a modified 6-day delivery plan. But if we get to September 30th, odds are, because of the holiday seasons, I would venture to guess that if the 5-day does get put back on the table, it wouldn't be considered until we get into next year. But that would just be my opinion. The other thing that we really need to take a look at is how much is all this confusion really just driving more and more mail out of the system. One of the things that has been stated is, it's important to have a solid, reliable postal service that the industry and consumers can count on, and as long as there is uncertainty about how well the Postal Service is doing in terms of finances, as long as there is constant change of what is the delivery schedule going to be, all these things are just raising questions, making it hard to plan, and it's for some in the industry, I'm sure they're looking at it and saying, we just need to get out of the mail because there's just too much confusion. And so obviously the goal is eliminate the confusion, get the Postal Service on solid ground, and then that just creates a solid industry for us to all continue to move forward with and build off of. So those are kind of my thoughts as far as where things currently stand. Based on that and the announcement that just came out an hour ago, what kind of questions do you have? And I'll hand it back over to Jerisa.
All right, thanks, Bob. Before we jump into Q&A, I just want to thank Bob for speaking to us today and getting us up to date on the delivery change, especially with the recent announcement the Postal Service made this morning. If you would like more information, feel free to contact Bob directly. His contact information is on the screen. I also want to mention that our next webinar, Intelligent Mail 201, What You Need to Know About Postal Service, is scheduled for April 17th. And that one will be hosted by Kim Mock, our Postal Product Specialist. This is a great session to learn more about full service and really what you need to meet the upcoming 2014 requirements. Other than that, we'll now open it up for questions. And let's see. All right, so the first question is, will express and priority mail be delivered on Saturday?
And with the modified 6-day delivery proposal, the answer to that was yes. Though express mail, priority mail would be considered part of packages that would still be delivered on Saturday. So yes, even with the modified 6-day delivery plan, the answer to that one is yes.
The next question is, where can the most recent announcement you referred to be found?
It came out in a couple of, I received it in a couple of different forms. One, was sent out by the Postal Service through their industry alert. If you are subscribed to that, you should have received it. If you are not subscribed to that, I would highly recommend actually looking at subscribing to the Postal Service's industry alerts. They do provide some very good, useful information as things like this happen. I also received this information. Satori Software is a member of Postcom, and so with that, Postcom is also very good at staying on top of these types of things and sending out very quick information like this when new announcements are sent out. So I received it, actually I received it first through Postcom and then second through the Postal Service via their industry alert is how I ended up seeing it.
So how does someone become a member of PostCom?
All you have to do is reach out to them and let them know that you would be interested in being a member. You can go out to their website, postcom.org. They have information about it. Actually, you'll see an announcement coming from Satori that PostCom is offering a free 90-day membership, and with all the different things going on in the industry right now, it's a great time to be plugged in, and PostCom is an awesome way to stay plugged into the industry. So there is one other question that says, I have noting that they have also heard that the unions are opposed to the move to the modified 6-day delivery, but union membership is in favor of it to get more standard work schedules and weekends off, at least 2 consecutive days, even if it's during the week. And yes, I've seen the same types of things being said, that yeah, I think the unions as a whole are opposed to it, but there are some in the rank and file that would actually enjoy having the modified 6-day delivery, and it would allow them to have more time off as far as 2 days in a row, because it sounds like just due to some of the carrier shortages, they are being called in on days when they would typically be off, and so they're working more than what they would prefer to be, I guess. So, I guess we'll do one last call. If you have any other questions, feel free to enter them in, and we will be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we might be nearing the end of our web event for today.
All right, so I just want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available shortly on the Satori software website. You can find this session along with many others on, let's see, there you go, on our archive sessions page under the Learn section of our site. If we don't have any other questions, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.